Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we're speaking about the toxic mass. The term toxic masculinity is a term that has become popular and is being thrown about without people really considering the differentiation between regular masculinity, toxic masculinity, and everything in between. There's levels to this. So, as a man, I can see there has been an overcorrection in how men behave with women and even how men behave with amongst themselves. There's been this self-governance amongst men where I see men dialing it back because they are concerned that they'll be ostracized by the greater public for behaving in a certain way. But there are behaviors that are the side effect of masculinity or testosterone, and they are actually beneficial to society. So we're going to get into all of these different gradations of masculinity and how the public perceives it and how women perceive it. It's okay. So there's a lot to unpack here. So a good place to start would be how men behaving badly can be a broad brush that most men are painted with. And when people see these men behaving badly, being sexual abusers, rapists, pedophiles, well, that's not even masculinity though, but behaving in that way, it's easy to group all men into that because they're saying that, oh, well, all men are capable of this behavior.
Has somebody ever had a conversation with you and they don't walk it back, but they forget they had it with you? So I had a coworker that was a lesbian, and her girlfriend, wife, works at the railroad. That's not important. But one time she was going through something, she had confided in me. She says, my dad worked for the railroad. He was just super masculine. Like, he took care of everything, not an abuser, not overbearing, and my dad's completely understanding of who I am. But she said, it would be hard to find a man like that. And long story short, she said, the only man I've ever seen that was like my father was you. And I'm like, huh? She's like, yeah. I think one reason that a lot of women don't like men is because these men today aren't like their father.
They're soft.
You don't.
So hold on.
Yeah.
So this lesbian coworker of yours, were you just a coworker or did a friendship develop?
We was cool.
But would you say she spoke to you more than she spoke to other men there?
No. It was just when she started hanging out with me, she realized there was differences in me, and then I was that same way.
Wait, you said hanging out. Is this doing work?
No, yeah, work. She, being a local chairman, she got in trouble a couple times, and even before that, she saw me do things that she didn't expect. One of our coworkers, she was really tight with. Long story short, she had sent a pussy pic to somebody, and that person was married to another person on the railroad, and they passed that picture around. And, she got a piercing. So she was showing it to her homegirl, and, well, this thing made it across the continent, and it went viral, basically.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so what happened, you don't know who the person is, but the person who it belonged to was in the room. And so there was a big conversation at one of the union meetings, and this guy was like, look, all those managers should be fired, basically, because, again,
they're behaving like high school students.
Yes. And the guy was right. But the problem is, of course, nobody wanted to own up to it. But the thing was, the girl was at the union meeting. He didn't know who it belonged to, but he knew about the incident, and he was, he wanted me to go after management. I'm like, yeah, I'm going after him. So at the end of the meeting, old girl's breaking, she just breaks down, and I'm like, nobody knew it was you until you started crying. So I go to the car, and the conversation I had, she's like, I never expected you to have that conversation the way you did. I'm like, yeah. And so after that, she started recognizing me more. She would talk to me more because not like we avoided each other. And she was like,
she
yeah,
respected you.
Yeah, it was respect. And so, and that's when she came out and said, like, she said, it's so hard she said, I don't know why I'm gay. I'm not saying anything like that. But she said, she said, most of these guys are not like my father. You're the first person I've ever met that was like my father.
Like, she felt it was important to discuss her sexuality with you?
Okay. I think I found out her sexuality a long time ago because I knew that her wife worked for the railroad.
Okay.
You know, but again, that was filed in the back someplace. You know,
Yeah, because
and
it didn't matter. You don't give a fuck.
yeah, yeah, not relevant. But when she saw me as I addressed this issue, and I addressed the guy down who did it in front of everybody, like, look, you dragging this out. I already told you I was going to take care of it, and I agree with you that behavior, like, they have this code of conduct, but they try to make it apply to the union people and not apply to non-union people. That's what he was saying, and he was correct with that. But the fact of the matter is, you know, you're not worrying about the living person that it belongs to. This, you
Well,
know,
hold
people,
on. The
somebody,
code of conduct is for the entire railroad and all
of
employees, right?
course, of course,
Okay.
but it's not enforced evenly. And that's what this guy was saying. He wanted me to get some managers fired. I did the best I could, but you know, the thing is, when you're in charge of discipline and making the rules, you also you administer the rules as you see fit, even when it's not just.
Why was he
And
such an advocate?
oh, because he was an asshole, and he didn't like managers. You know, that's all. He didn't like managers. And you know, look, when I was a manager, you know this. I had a Palm Trio. Years, you know, I had like the first like smartphone. I had one of those joints, and you know, I had that. Then I had been sending dirty pictures on text messages a long time ago, and then all of a sudden, when I become a manager again, or become a manager, excuse me, and that shit came up right away. Like, hey, in this day and age, people are sending inappropriate pics. Had a whole video about it, but that was years before this incident happened. And so it's one of these things where, like, yeah, my company had a protocol about that when it first when text messages and picture messages first started. It, they had a thing about that immediately. So this gentleman's right. You know, they
It's
went
crazy,
out their
man.
way.
It's like as soon as people could take picture of their private parts,
Dick,
they started sending them shits. This is
yeah. But
2001.
here's the funny thing about that. Me and you had this discussion. You know, pornography was right after they started doing motion pictures. When they started doing motion pictures, they had dirty movies like the next week. People don't understand that. I think here's the whole deal. We're talking about toxic masculinity and not toxic. You have to. It's just like racism. You have to acknowledge that it exists. But the problem is with a lot of white folks, they'll acknowledge racism, but they won't acknowledge how it's benefited them. Me and you as men, we can have these real discussions where I'm like, okay, the Bible wasn't about fucking over black folks. The Bible was about fucking over women. And then later on, black folks just got mixed in the mix, you know, in the, you know, whatever hundreds or whatever. And you realize that,
Hold on. You said the Bible is about fucking over women. Was it
yeah,
though, or was it more about a reflection of the time that people lived in?
okay, that is a very true part, yes. Because like Bill Burr said some deep shit about that when he was defending John Wayne. He's like, yeah, you're a product of the time you were written. That is very true.
Yeah,
It
but
was
you
a
still have a conscience too, though. Yeah, fuck John Wayne.
yeah,
Fuck Bill Burr for defending them. They both white motherfuckers. I understand why he's defending them. He's a white dude, and he's into all that nostalgic,
oh no.
shit.
What he's saying is that motherfuckers spoke differently back then. Even my great uncle. You know,
Look,
my
no,
uncle
no, no,
Buster.
no, 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 no. Listen, man, listen. I'm gonna tell you why. Fuck Bill Burr for saying that bullshit. Because that's a half-ass lazy perspective. See, I have the benefit of being raised by a man that was a grown-ass man in those times.
He was a grown ass man when you met him.
Yes, and he would point out a cracker at the drop of a hat. He's like, see that guy right
Oh
there?
no. And see that's my uncle was the same. That's why I
But
was
then,
about to
see,
go
hold
there.
on, no, hold on. My dad had homeboys that was white.
Oh,
So,
of course.
listen, man. So when for people to say that, oh, that's the time. Nah, man, you have a conscious motherfucker. Like either you're gonna cave and toe the fucking party line, or you're gonna be a cool motherfucker. And
Oh,
the
see,
white dudes that was cool with my dad was cool human beings.
no. Hold it. There's three things we got to put in this conversation. Number one, using fucked up language doesn't mean you're a racist. And I know that sounds crazy as hell, but the Clint Eastwood movie,
Hey,
Gran
and fuck Elvis too. He said all a
oh,
black man can do is shine my shoes, but yet he stole his moves and his swag from black musicians.
Period. Okay, I didn't realize he even got his. There's a black guy. The voice that Elvis used wasn't even his. He got that from somebody. I'm like, and when you hear this guy sing, you're like, oh, you got to kid, you kid me. Elvis stole everything, moves, music, and
man, matter of fact, look, man, all these people talking this bullshit about, it's the time. Then you got white Jews that went out there and got their head busted to white meat right alongside black people in these violent ass marches. So respect to those Jewish people that fucking, held it the fuck down when their white friends was not holding it down. And that's some brave shit to do. You know what I'm saying? That's brave as fuck, dude. So it's like, so for Bill Burr to say that, man, fuck him, man.
No. Like I said, this is the part that you're leaving out. My uncle used the wrong language for everything, but my uncle was not a racist. See, using the wrong language doesn't make you racist. Your actions do. Elvis's actions made him a racist, where he stole some shit from somebody. Now, I don't like the N-word or whatever, but my uncle is a Peckerwood or a nigga. That's how my uncle spoke. It's just, and like he used every, and like I said, that's why that movie Gran Turismo, I understood it because my uncle was like that. But he was not he didn't judge that man. He didn't hate that man. He's like, yeah, man, them damn Peckerwoods everywhere. And he talked like that. So what I'm saying is that because somebody uses the wrong language doesn't mean that person. Look, if he's talking about the way John Wayne talked, I don't have a problem with it. If he's talking about the way John Wayne acts, I got a problem with it. There was no black people on the set. The Indians was white. That's why I have a problem when you sit there and do that shit. I think that the other thing that people leave out when we talk about time.
When I was a little kid, my psychic energy was like pretty fucking strong and shit. I could always pick up on a prejudiced white dude, right? And like whenever I would come across them, I could always pick up on this clear line of demarcation. Otherness is what I'll call it, and this vibe that I could feel where it's this person was saying subconsciously, I am not like you. You are not like me. We are different. But it was from a stance of disdain that I picked this vibe up as a kid. Because
some of it was admiration, though.
No. Well, I'm not talking about that. That's not what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking about this indifference. Look, there's agreeable and disagreeable. This isn't that vibe that I would get from people. It's not agreeable. It was part of their identity that I was registering. It was part of that person's identity. Their indifference and their racial identity were glued together.
No, we're talking about the same thing. I can't remember what grade. We had to be like in fourth grade, maybe. It wasn't third grade because me and you were in the same class. But there was a time this chick was like, I remember we were playing tag or whatever. And she said, like, you can't touch me. I'm like, well, why not? We're playing tag. I know you're black. And I'm like, wait a minute. This guy with the yellow teeth can touch you, but I can't touch you? What I'm saying is that we didn't realize how polarized the shit was way back then. But it always was. But
it wasn't, because we had white kids that we played with in school. That was cool. And then we had white kids that we knew that were shitheads.
No.
Listen, trash begets trash. All that means is that those white kids that we were cool with, they were raised by good white people.
I think you had a couple pieces of paper and you got full-blown trash. And what I'm saying is that people judged us and we didn't know it. I found out later on. I don't think they were just honest with you. Like,
no, see, you say that, man, but I think my experience is a little different than yours because I didn't have that naivete that you're speaking of. I had this awareness that I could feel. I could stretch out my feelings. I could feel who didn't like me right away.
Okay, but see, some of this wasn't dislike, though. That's what I'm trying to let you know. A lot of them, their parents were half-ass shitheads, or they heard their parents have those conversations. Nigger took my job. They hear that, too. But what I'm simply saying is that there was more middle ground people than you realize, because our school got blacker and blacker as we grew up. More and more black kids started going to our school. I think a lot of that got hidden. I just remember being in fights with kids, and they never called me the N-word, but they showed say black with emphasis. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for me to explain, but I just remember being in grade school and hearing people say certain things, or like you would hear it off the side. I remember getting in fights with a white dude every damn year, It was just one of these things that somebody else would make a comment or somebody else would say this. Or the two goofy dudes that moved in on Manderson. I got a fight with both two brothers one time. And like I said, you're talking about the extreme shithead who didn't. I don't like you.
All right, let's bring it back because we're getting too far afield. We need to get back to masculinity because this is like a sidebar. Here's the deal, man. So as a kid, you can pick up ways from your uncle or men that you see around you. See, okay, this is the difference. The men that raise you have the responsibility to teach you the right way, to teach you how to be a gentleman, right?
Use that word raise, though. It's about the raising. These people nowadays don't raise.
This is what I'm saying, that there's a whole generation of young men that were raised by the media, that were raised by examples that they see in the street. They see things that were put there through social engineering, like the purposeful implosion of the black man's image in music.
I saw this guy. He did not say he was a gang member, but he said he went to college, but he got arrested and did some real time. He did so many years, and he said I was talking to an old head in jail, not an OG, but an old head, and he said you can't trust these niggas now. He said they all raised by women. I said, what's the big deal with that? He said because they listen to their emotions. These guys were raised on emotion and not raised on logic. Oh, dude. and he said that's not the kind of.
But see, that's the thing, though. When these moist ass people out here in the world now would hear that and say, they have a knee jerk reaction, all up in their feelings, but like, yo, that's some toxic masculinity. No, it's not. That is an observation that women they lean more toward their emotional natures, right? Than they do to their logical nature. But hang on, wait. Than they do toward their logical nature. But here's the thing. That man was clearly pointing out that man who was not raised by men to be logical, which men tend to lead towards their logical nature, right? I don't know if that. Shut up, nigga. Let me finish my point. So then that man who's raised by women who are taught to feel and reactive and more emotional, then this guy is taking on those traits, those feminine traits, right? Those feminine cerebral traits. So therefore, he was actually accurate in his observation.
All I was saying was I don't know how the guy didn't mention how he was raised. But the point was, he was actually talking about gang members. He wasn't just talking about people in general.
It doesn't matter.
No, hold on. It completely matters because that gang member will shoot you because he's mad. And it's one thing when somebody actually hurts you. Like if you're in a fight and duct tape you this and Roscoe you that, and we've escalated. We got to a fight, whatever. But it's another thing when you're just offended. So you're going to kill me over me offending you?
Dude, how many times have you been around somebody, and you just mentioned one, where a person says, you remind me of my uncle, you remind me of my brother, you remind me of my dad?
Yeah.
Nobody ever says to you as a man, you remind me of my mother. Nobody says anything like that. Right? Yeah. So then you got to understand that's an echo to that man's childhood. Or that person's childhood when they're looking for the archetype, when they're looking for that male representation. Dude, listen, I did not have to look far to see what a man looked like. All I had to do is go walk down the hall, open the door, and hear fucking Nebraska football blasting from a TV, and my dad be sitting there watching the game. Okay, I did not have to fucking go far. It was right there. And neither did you. All you do is come to my crib. But this is the thing. There were kids across the street from me, next door to you, all around us, who did not have that shit. Now, your mother was the fucking golden compass that kept your monkey ass from fucking crashing into the rocks. But
it's real simple because she raised me.
But hold on. But people around her, women around her, who didn't have no fucking, had a fucked up rudder and they were just drifting, letting their kids run wild, these kids turned out a certain way.
Look, it's okay. And this is the again. See, these conversations me and you have off the air. That's what we got to have them on the air. The bottom line, when you feed somebody and clothe them, that is not raising them. Giving them a direction, giving them discipline. And like I said, a lot of these women, you're raising kids. A lot of these men too, because I'm not going to. But a lot of these parents who aren't disciplining their kids or don't give their kids discipline.
Park that for a second. I want to say something to all the guys that are listening to this. The men I'm talking to. If you are dating a woman and or even if you have a child with a woman, and whether you live together or don't live together, I'm gonna tell you something that's very important. It is very important that once in a while, take the boy or the girl, take them away somewhere so that y'all can go and do activities,
Man.
and they can learn stuff. You need to teach them things, because those kids will remember these things, because their minds are clay. And if you go and you spend the time with them and you take them somewhere, you take them to a park, or you take them on a hike, and you teach them how to shoot a bow and arrow, or you teach them how to start a fire, or you teach them how to sharpen a knife, or you teach them how to hunt, or you teach them how to swim, or how to shoot a basketball, or how to block and throw punches, or how to kick and how to protect themselves. You teach them martial arts. You teach them these things that are ancient, these things that have been passed down from other men. These are emblems of positive masculinity. Go ahead, man.
I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh, yeah. Look, no. Raising a kid ain't just feeding them. And that's the whole thing, is that these people think that, hey, I provide it. Like, yes. But the thing that you just said that I've experienced, so you with your kids. I got a lot of kids. I'm with my kids, and their mother don't know how to communicate with them. So then I start talking to them, and then she want to chime in. That's why I get them to go someplace else. Not because it's because I want their undivided attention. Because if you were going to have this deep ass conversation, you could have had it, but you didn't. You want to piggyback off what I'm talking about, which is fine. But the issue is that I'm not trying to give them a point of view. I'm trying to show them, like, hey, this politician, I dig what you're saying, but there's layers to this. If you got a problem with it, you need to run. Hey, abortion is this and this, that, and other. Hey, this, that, you talk about drugs. Hey, you had these conversations, and you sometimes you explain, sometimes you coach, and sometimes you straight up give answers like, hey, you don't do that, or you stay away from this. And that's what it means to raise somebody. So when the deep shit that you said, two deep things earlier, you said we have a generation of people who are raised by the media. Me and you had access to television.
Yep.
But we didn't have social media. Our idea of social media was a note in class and shit. And I couldn't spell that well, so I wasn't big on writing notes and shit. But what I'm saying is that yeah, you could sit your kid in front of a TV, but we knew we had the Disney Channel, we had Images, we had PBS, we had certain, and you didn't have the access to all this different shit. Well, and now when you have the internet, you got access to porn, you got access to any kind of violence you're looking for, you got access to anything that a lot of kids aren't ready for. And so, like I said, if you got kids, check their browser history. Because like for us back in the day, if your dad had Dirty Magazine, we had to sneak the magazine out to uncle's house, come down the street, go to your homeboy's house, look at it. Oh my God, Vanessa Williams. We looked at it and then we put it back. But now these kids have access to concepts and things that their minds aren't ready for. That's why when you sit here and talk about, sexuality of a young child, like, man, that's kind of weird to me, man. Because, like I said, you didn't have access to that.
Okay. All right. Hold on a second. In our culture, violence is tolerated in entertainment. Sexuality has been muted for a long time. So I want to ask you a personal question. In raising children, how much control did you have over them watching a movie where two adults were kissing on the screen?
Oh, okay. My older stepchildren, I wasn't there for everything. And when my second oldest daughter, one of her favorite movies was Baby Boy, because she would sneak and watch it. Now, her mom didn't want her watching it.
There's a lot of raunchy-ass sex scenes in there.
Yeah. And so, again, being exposed to some stuff a little bit too early, I don't care for that. On the flip side, my two younger daughters, their mom was real big on not letting them see anything, not even having, not having cable or only having so many channels, that kind of stuff. It makes a huge difference. There's a big emphasis on sexuality, but sexuality ain't got nothing to do with masculinity or manhood. Being straight, I guess that's cool, and I'm not tripping on you being straight or not. All I'm simply saying is that as a man, you're a provider. You want to take care of, you want to show, you want to teach. And that's the whole balance that you've been talking about is, so you have an emotional side and you have a logical side. You should be exposed to both simultaneously, because if you're not, you're going to lean more towards one way than the other. Um, you shouldn't lean towards either. You should lean towards balance. You should be like, okay, and that's we see it. We see it in politics. You got two extremes. Sometimes extreme is necessary. Like some people, you got to punch in the face. Some people, you got to stomp them. But most situations, it's the moderation. It's someplace in the middle where you're like, okay, we need this, we need that. Uh, like I said, when it comes to when I was talking about what I said the Bible, I'm saying like you said, it was written in a certain time. I get some of that stuff that's true, but some of that stuff was canceling women out altogether, like Eve. Where the word evil comes from Eve. So you're saying women are evil, stuff like that. A lot of that shit is messed up, and it's in the reason I brought up racism is that a lot of white folks will benefit from racism, from a racist society, excuse me. But I'm not racist. I get it, but some of that shit you got to call out as a man. You know, I know the parts of society that are fucked up, so I showed my daughters that shit. I explained that shit to my daughters, like, yeah, a motherfucker will do this. Yeah, watch out for that. Yeah, you know, and you explain it. And then one of my daughters, who was in foster care, went through a fucked up situation. And she comes back to me and she's like, hey, duct tape, it happened just the way you said it would. I did this and this to protect myself and get out. I said, yeah, I know. I'm so proud of you.
Hey,
and
so, but you have young boys in your life, and you have one, right?
Yeah, I got one stepson.
So, do you talk to him in the same tone all the time, no matter what, or do you ever put some bass behind your voice?
He can't take it. No, my nephew,
What?
I can. Yeah.
What do you mean he can't take it?
He can't take it. He can't take correction. He can't take intelligence. He can't. He's been manipulating women so long, and he manipulated his mom and his sisters, and then he tries to do it with me. I'm like, nah, and I just like, miss me with that bullshit. And when I say it, my kid's like, there you go. I'm like, listen to me. I see bullshit. I'm like, you need to take that to the next aisle and give that to a different cashier. You understand what I'm saying?
You have to maintain that stance because he needs to learn.
Changed.
No, he needs to learn that you're a man and he's a boy, Damon, and this is how it's going to be.
Well, like I said, I can do that with my nephew because my sister allows it. And like I told you, I told you a story one time. My nephew was talking to me like I was a woman. I'm like, don't do that. You're trying to charm me. I'm like, no, motherfucker. You don't talk to me like that. And
how old was he at that moment?
14.
Oh, wow. So he's been doing it for a while.
Yeah, but that's because this goes back to what you were talking about, having all these women around them. These kids learn how to manipulate their parents early on. But boys learn that the same thing that works on my mom works on my aunt, works on my grandma, works on this person. Most girls compartmentalize and they only like fuck over one or two people. Boys they take that.
They just keep going and just trying to steamroll over everything.
Everybody. And so, like I said, my stepson tried that shit. I'm like, yeah, bruh, you don't know how close you were to getting choked. And sometimes you don't even mean to hit somebody, but when the kids are being flipped, you catch yourself.
No, and but see, that's the thing though, man. Like, positive masculinity is grabbing a little boy by the arm and saying,
correction.
Hey, we are not doing that. And saying that with emphasis and power behind your voice, because he needs to understand that, hey, that guy's power is bigger than mine. I have to yield to him.
Yield. Yeah. Hold it. Parents can ruin kids. I hate harking on women all the time because men can ruin kids too. And literally, I know somebody who, whenever you try to correct their son, it's always your fault. I'm like, dude, his dad shows up to like discipline him. Mom will take him and buy him shoes. Like literally, will leave the house.
All right. So I have had that issue before.
Whew, wow.
But see, this is the thing. No, but this is the thing, though. I stand my ground, and I plant roots that go all the way down beyond the center of the earth. Because everybody in that room has to understand that when I say something, that's it. I'm not here to discuss how everybody feels about it. You're not going to question me about this. We're going to do it this way.
Yeah, I don't negotiate.
I don't do things like you because I'm a man and he is a boy. and he needs a man to tell him how it's going to be, because he will turn into a criminal if he thinks that he can get away by manipulating everybody in his life. Like you said earlier, that boy will steamroll over everything in his path until he hits that immovable object.
And he just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is how we prevent little kids from turning into grown-ass criminals.
Well, hold it. You could have great parents. You could have.
Listen, man. Listen. This is what I'm saying. A manipulative person will become a criminal if they don't have anything stopping them early on in life from turning into a complete sociopath.
Look, you have to give them boundaries because they're not born with them. You have to give discipline, but I say this, and I've said it on past podcasts. It's hard for a motherfucker to give some shit they don't have.
Listen to me. Yesterday, I was at the airport in Boston, and there was this woman that had this little baby. I think she looked like she was Middle Eastern or something. And she had this little baby, and she didn't care about like giving this kid boundaries. And this little girl was just crying. And then she stopped crying. She gave her something to eat. And then the lady came through TSA, and she's just letting this baby just run around. And when you come through TSA in Boston, as soon as you get past TSA checkpoint, there's these big stairs, and right next to them there's these escalators going down, and it goes down for 3 stories like it's a long fall. And this little baby, she ran to the right, and then she ran straight toward the escalators, and this big black woman came around. She said, "Baby, baby, 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 baby," and she just grabbed the baby with one arm, picked it up, and brought it back to the mother. The mother was just standing there watching the child run toward the escalators. Didn't even like run after her at all. And I'm like, oh no, the lights aren't on in there. Like you're not giving the child boundaries, and that's dangerous.
Look, okay, let's talk about somebody raising you. My cousin,
this black woman, her instincts like kicked in. She just picked that child up one arm and walked right over.
I'm about to go there.
She didn't think about what she was doing. She just did it.
She didn't care about the repercussions.
She didn't care. She didn't care. She just did it.
What she was doing was right. When I was a kid, my big cousin, you didn't meet her. She had moved to California before me and you started hanging out. And I remember when I was a kid, she would wig out on escalators. Like I would bend over tying my shoes, like nope. Or if my shoe wasn't tied, she would pull me to the side. And what she said escalators can move can move thousands of pounds. They can move tons. If your shoe string gets caught in there, I guess, kids got killed back in the day. I didn't know about this. And I remember when I got older, when me and you was in Westroads, and then took the escalator apart. And
hold on. Was this when it was still brown on the inside?
Yeah.
When they had those stairs with the holes in between?
Yep. And they would zigzag.
Dude, those stairs would freak me out when I was a kid.
And so, I think it was after the renovation because it was still brown, but remember they renovated the middle and they had those long. Mm-hmm. And so I'd seen them take it apart for the first time, and I'm like, that's what my cousin was talking. Mind you, I'm 2 and 3 years old. I remember my cousin would wig out. She's like, look, make sure your shoes are tied because these things, once they get you, they don't let go. And, I see how these things are huge. It's not, escalator is not made the way you think it is.
It's a machine that can eat you up. That can chew you up.
Dude, it's not like a treadmill. This is.
You won't stop.
Yeah, nope. And so that's raising. See, when you raise somebody, sometimes the answer is going to be no. And like I said, we had a similar podcast when we first started. And I asked her, I said, do you know the difference between the devil and God? God's going to tell you no sometimes. The devil's always going to tell you yeah. And once you understand that concept, you realize that sometimes the answer is no. And sometimes you got to be able to deliver that. As a man, I know that I got to deliver a negative message from time to time. I got to tell my kids no. Now, it's how my kids act. My oldest one, she cool. She still talks to me from time to time. My second oldest, I told her no once, and when she got grown, and she don't deal with me no more. But that's the whole thing is if you're consistent, as in the answer's no, and this answer's no, and the answer
because
yes,
you're not going to give her what she wants.
It's not about want, it's about right. And sometimes what you want ain't right. And and the reason I say this is because the reason a lot of people have a problem with spirituality and the concept of God is because the concept of the home is so fucked up. You don't have a head of the household. Again, we talked about this in past podcasts. Well, you got to have a head of the household, whether it's man or woman, ain't the issue. It's whether that head is good and solid. Like my brother would tell you, my mom didn't play that shit. And, I only had one friend that was allowed in the house. Like, our mother, hey, man, your mom ain't here. Like, nope, I gotta use the bathroom. You better go piss on that tree, son. Because my mother only allows one person in the house other than myself. And it was Roscoe. That's because she knew he had good parents. She knew if he broke something, he would be disciplined or to be replaced. All these other motherfuckers, my mom was like, look, man, some of these motherfuckers looking for lawsuits. You don't know what their parents like. And again, when my mom said it, didn't make sense. But later on, when you saw that Michael Jackson shit, and you realize these kids are over there for a lawsuit, they just want to sue somebody.
But you know what, man? I gotta say though, Mike, my way is not for everybody. No, listen, I have dated a lot of women, and what I found is the women that tend to be the most well-educated tend to be the ones that are the most opinionated about certain things.
I'm gonna ask a question.
Wait. They also tend to be the ones that tend to be alone longer than in any of the other women that I've dated. And it's because they make themselves undesirable. What am I talking about? I'm talking about women being difficult. All right. And me personally, when it comes to certain things in a relationship, when it comes to the woman, I'm not going to beat you. I'm going to treat you right. I'm going to give you everything you need. Make sure you have the support that you need.
Make sure you're good. You're solid.
But listen, I'm going to need you to, when I say this is how we doing this, you need to sign off on that. I don't need you to question it because you have to trust me. If I trust you, then you need to trust me. So if I say this is how we're going to do it, that's it. This is how we're going to do it. Now, if you cannot agree to these terms, then we don't have a relationship.
Yeah. So, Roscoe, what I was asking.
Now, listen. I was saying that because there's women out there that cannot submit.
We're going to
because listen.
We're on the same road.
They want this thing to be everything equal, everything this, and I'm like, no, you don't. You say that, but you don't. So listen, look, I'm gonna tell you like this. Like, I need you to submit. If you cannot, then we don't have a relationship. Now, listen, that doesn't mean that, you've just given all your sovereignty away. No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, when I put down the fucking law, that's it.
There's going to be times where I say something, it's not open for discussion. There's some things I don't discuss. Now, I got a couple questions. Like I said, first of all, when you were talking about degrees, were you talking about black women or other races? Because that's the issue there.
Well, I date black women.
I wasn't saying it as I was dissing you. I'm simply saying that black women in a degree is one of the craziest things you'll ever see. Because a black woman, I have a degree in home economics, but she swear because I got a degree, I could do anything. And don't let that bitch get a master's. Now, so I ain't dissing nobody, but I told you this story. You know everybody involved. So I was dating the school teacher at the time, and she had already had her second master's degree. She was working on a doctorate. And I went to one of the homies' house, and his wife has a master's. And she's bragging. She's like, you probably don't know what it's like to have your master's. She's like, why wouldn't I know what it's like? What do you mean? I said, I got 2 masters. I'm working on my PhD right now. And
she said that to her?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because that
these are 2 black women having this conversation.
Yes, because I'm talking about my school teacher. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes, I know.
What I'm saying is she's not an aggressive person. You know that for a fact.
Yeah, she's very reserved.
Yeah, she wasn't aggressive. She was just, but
I love her response. She's like, why wouldn't I know?
Yeah, why wouldn't I know that? I got 2. And the other person's mouth dropped. So
Yeah, Captain Crunchy.
yeah, it wasn't a diss. It was and on the flips, and the reason I'm saying this is because that person, the school teacher you know of, she kept getting degrees, but her behavior only improved and never got worse. But most black women, once they get that first degree, they think they know everything, and then when they get their masters, you can't tell them shit. Like if you got a black chick and she has a master's, many times you can't discuss anything with them. And here's the crazy part: most women don't know I have a degree. They don't find out I have a degree until something comes up. It's like, I didn't know you had a degree. Like, why wouldn't I? Like because, and again, here's another thing that's crazy. Um, you haven't been to my mom's house yet, but you need to come out to Tennessee. But a lot of my family out there in the country, even though they're country, N-word, they're country niggas. Most of them got their degree. The women and the men. We didn't.
A lot
We
of
didn't
people
have
in the
that
South are
choice.
like that.
Yeah. You see, you know this to be true, and you assume they don't, but no. And so, but the point I'm making when it comes to these black women, if a white woman gets a degree, she's a wife. If a Asian woman gets a degree, she's a wife. If a black woman gets a degree, she's a
Oh
man.
man, you got to run that back right there about Asian women. Say that shit again.
Yeah, an Asian woman gets a degree, whether she's Chinese, Hindu, whatever, she's a wife. A white woman gets a degree, she's a wife. But when a black woman gets a degree, she's a man. And that's the shit that fucks us up.
Mm.
And so when you're talking toxic masculinity, you need to talk about black women because, and the other part about what you're saying about the submission part, this is what I was trying to tell you earlier. Many women don't know how to be loved. And again, I've said this
It's a
on
trip,
past
man,
podcasts.
because like in Atlanta, I shop in the Asian area a lot and shit, right? Buford Highways, it's like a melting pot of different foreign cultures. And when you go to the store, you see young Asian couples. And it's funny because despite how woke everybody wants to be and shit, you can go to like an Asian grocery store and you see like young Asian 19, 20-year-old chicks hanging on their man.
Yeah, that's marriage material. You see
And I'm
similar
not saying
behavior.
when I say hanging on, I'm not being bad about it. I'm saying like
No, yeah, no,
she's submissive to him.
yeah, she with him,
Yeah,
but you,
she's
you
with him.
see,
She like you can tell she's with this guy. And I'm like,
you
oh,
see
that's dope.
it. You see that in the Mexican community early on. They with the one dude. Now, dude might cheat, dude might have, but he gonna marry that high school sweetheart.
But man,
And
I'm gonna tell you something though, man. This cultural Marxism, social media manipulation that's going on. Oh man, it's had such an effect on the black community. I
we can,
I
we
implore
believe what we
everybody
see.
to go and look up on YouTube the interview with Yuri Bezmenov. He's a former KGB agent, and he talks about the different levels of manipulation that can take decades to change the population of a country. And he talks about how once a population has become demoralized, once a person has become demoralized, no matter how much information, how many photographs and documents and proof and headlines you show a person, they won't believe it because they've been demoralized.
That's some deep shit.
Dude.
And because once you're demoralized, then you have no
So
boundaries. You
then
have
black people, once you demoralize them, it's easier to brainwash them.
here's the biggest issue that nobody wants to address, and nobody has a problem with homosexuality. It's always been around, but people still got married and had kids. Whatever you did on the side or whatever you did before you got married was private. And so I think in this day and age, because of something that you did when you were 14, 15, now you stick with that. And some of these parents who are being supportive are actually not being supportive. And when I say that, I'll give an example. This one chick, either her niece or her daughter was, came out the closet, whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, that's kind of early. And she's like, we going to this kind of event. We're going to that kind of event. What if she just had one or two sexual experiences and all of a sudden she done changed her mind? You know what I'm saying? But now you putting the pressure on her to stay that way. I'm like, you're not being organic. Sexuality for other people, for women, is flexible. Niggas, I don't know. But sexuality is something that can change quickly. And when you're trying to be supportive, and actually, I think you're confining her by doing that. Why don't you just let her grow and figure this shit out on her own? And when she needs to talk about these conversations, you need to be there. You know, I've had all these conversations, no matter how unpleasant they are with my children. Like I said, but that's part of raising them. The thing is, nobody wants to raise the kid. They just want to feed them and make a basketball player. Everybody's looking for LeBron. It don't work like that. You know, you got to raise motherfuckers. You got to have conversations that are difficult. You got to give them things that they weren't expecting. And like I said, that's the problem when I saw this in a foreign show, and I think that something that Thomas Sowell, which I used to like Thomas Sowell, but he's a piece of shit. But Thomas Sowell was talking about how black folks are more like poor rednecks than you realize. And the reason I'm saying that is because when you look at Europe, this is the conversation they had. I was watching a European podcast, and they were talking about, so a woman marries a guy, and she starts making more money than that guy, and she decides she'll leave him. And so the girl, she goes, hey, right on, sister, right on. She's like, no, why? So you were saying right on, and you're celebrating the death of a family. You celebrate. So that's what's messed up. So when a man becomes more successful, he wants to get a family and share it. But when a woman becomes more successful, it's all because of her, and she wants to move on and leave the family behind. And that right there, like I said, you see it more in the black community here in America, but it's happening overseas where these women are getting these rights, and they're arguing over feminism and all this other bullshit. And
because
when I say
that is the slow motion invasion of cultural Marxism. It's not just in America; it's happening in other countries too.
oh no, that's very deep. It's happening in other countries. But look, what we're talking about is toxic masculinity, but you thinking of a male. You're not realizing toxic masculinity belongs to women also. And I'm not talking about when a woman says, "I'll never
That's
vote
toxic
for
femininity.
Oh, no. I'm talking about pay attention to what I'm saying. They're doing what dumb men do. These smart women are doing what dumb men do, and you need to recognize that.
Now no. That's toxic mimicry.
Hey, name you might have just named some new shit.
Toxic mimicry. There you go.
You the first, my nigga. Remember Sigmund Freud? He called it penis envy. Remember that was a term back then. But this is different. This is the mimicry, and this mimicry is killing our black community. Now, here's the deal. Like I said, I have no problem with homosexuality, but you got to remember that ain't no kids coming from that shit.
But here's the thing, though. Hold it. Here's the thing, though. What you do not see if everybody's supposed to be living in this super progressive time, then why don't you see a butch lesbian and a lipstick lesbian in a commercial with an adopted baby?
Oh, goddamn.
Why don't you see two gay dudes with an adopted baby in these commercials, in these McDonald's commercials, or in these movie commercials and shit? You do not see that. You don't. But all you see is more stuff that's geared towards hedonism and lowering the population.
Look, if you fuck up the men, ain't no babies coming. And it's like I said, so much of this shit is chemical castration, and you don't realize it. That they have those estrogen imitators. I didn't realize how bad they were. It's in plastics, lavender. Dude broke it down. He talked about sesame seeds. He said, it's not so bad in there. But he said, when you're consuming, I forgot what kind of seeds he was talking about. You consume this shit, and it has an estrogen imitator, and it has the same effect of estrogen, but it has no benefits. So he said, why do you think all these men have breasts now? Why do you think? He talked about the lavender oil. He talked about all these different things, and this shit is real. And going back, and old boy also talked about the goddamn, what did he talk about? The doctor from California, the black dude that was talking about, my kid, not glyphosate. What's the other one? Atrazine. Talking about atrazine in the experiment on frogs. How atrazine turned the boy frogs to girl frogs and girl frogs to boy frogs. And atrazine they spray it on a lot of our food after the harvest. If atrazine is a herbicide or insecticide, why are you spraying it after the harvest? And so it's affecting. And this goes back to also a conversation we had years ago. Remember when I told you that the CIA was trying to develop a gay bomb, and people were like, well, whatever. I'm like, but But then Dick Rutgers came out and said the same thing. You're like, so here's my question: did it work or it didn't work? And when I say it didn't work because it didn't have the desired effect. But did it work as it was successful in changing people's sexuality from a chemical basis? That's what you need to understand. Just because the bomb didn't have the desired effect does not mean the bomb didn't work as in making people gay. And making people gay is population control. Making people gay will have you arguing over sexuality. The reason I gave that example is you got whole cultures where, hey, a sexual experience is a sexual experience. It don't go anywhere. But over here in America, next thing you know, you got Brittany Griner in prison there, and everybody's cheering for her because that was a good political move. She's black, she's lesbian, she's married to a woman. We want to secure those votes. And you can't tell me that shit wasn't political. We talked about that already.
Hey, but at one time, did anybody hear her say that was some dumbass shit I did to fucking land in there?
Oh hell no!
One time, did she own the stupidity?
I haven't listened to the interview, but you got plenty of people saying the same thing. Like the chick did it, and me and you we already talked about this in the podcast. All I'm saying is that I don't want her in jail, but you have to be pretty damn arrogant to go to another country and tell them how to do their judicial system. I learned about that drug thing when I was in college. I was talking to a chick from the Bahamas, and dude was trying to holler at her. We both was trying to holler, but he was like, "Hey man, you probably smoking big ass ganja." She's like, "What?" Yeah, because we don't know the difference between Jamaica and Bahamas. Apparently in America, we just know you're in the Caribbean. She's like,
"Speak for yourself."
Yeah, I know that, but I'm talking about 20 something years ago, and she's like, she's like, in the Bahamas, we go to jail for that shit. He's like, oh no,
because that's U.S. territory.
Yes, and so he didn't know the difference. He's just assuming because she had an accent that she was Jamaican or whatever. And so that's what I mean when you go to these other countries, you need to know what customs, but more importantly, what laws. Don't be going over there smoking no weed. If you in Denmark or whatever that place is, you can do that shit. Amsterdam, whatever. But you got to be careful because she was in Russia and they didn't stand for that shit. And they said she had quite a bit. I thought she had like a couple of them. Apparently, she said she had a lot for distribution. That's what got her in trouble.
She had enough to last the duration of her trip.
Well, I know that was probably her point because she was over there for a long time.
Yeah.
But the idea that
I thought it was just one, but okay,
her?
So it's a lot. All right.
Yeah. So I think that was a big part of it. Look, here's the deal. We're talking about masculinity. Is toxic or not? Like I said, when you have daughters, I try to prepare my daughters for a fight. I try to prepare my daughters like, look, y'all got stun guns, y'all got mace, y'all got all of them have that kind of stuff. And you had these conversations with them like, hey, before you get out the car, you need to scan your surroundings. A little bit ago, my daughter got locked out of her car, and I went off on her. I'm like, look, she was taking her sign language class over here in La Vista, and she lives 15, 16 miles away up north. And I said, so when did you notice you had left your keys in the car? She said, I noticed right away. I said, that's because you weren't paying attention. I said, stay off your phone. When you're getting in and out of the car, you should not be on your phone. Do you understand? I don't care if you got to put it down or hold it down and look around, because what's happening in that moment, you are not watching your surroundings. That phone is a distraction. That conversation can wait. So you end your conversation in the car, then you open the door and get out and look around. If you're getting in the car, you need to be off the phone, because what it is, your mom wants to talk to you because she wants to make sure you're safe. But what she's doing is making you unsafe, because you got to focus on what she's talking about. You got to focus on that. So when you're walking to the car 10 feet away from the car, your phone should be in your pocket. You should be observing your surroundings. That kind of stuff. You try to tell your daughters about, hey, these are the games that these guys are going to play. And my kids will come back like, how'd you know what he's going to say? Because I'm saying he's trying to play you. He's trying to manipulate you. He wants to make you feel guilty. He's trying to control your emotions because you're emotional. And now you're sitting here thinking about this. I remember one time my cousin had broke up with somebody, and I told her, like, look, don't cut your hair. She's like, I already did it. She said, how did you know? I said, because right now you're searching for control. You can't control this other person, so you're trying to control yourself, and to your own detriment. Don't sit here and change your appearance because it's the only thing that you have control of. What you need to do is recognize that person ain't healthy and recognize those signs. And love ain't enough. And when I tell people love's not enough, they get offended because we grew up on love stories and shit. When you say love ain't enough, it's because what I'm talking about is adulthood. again, I told you the story. This chick had a dog. She said that was her baby. And I'm like, I see this dog is in pain. I said, man, he's sick. You need to take him to the vet. Oh, no, I'm like, no. He said, man, before I knew it, the dog had shit all in the house. She said, how'd you know his stomach was hurting? I'm like, you can watch his behavior. You're so busy trying to prove that you love this dog and show everybody that you love the dog that you're not doing what's best for the dog. And you can't even recognize when that dog is in pain. The dog is telling you that he has a problem. How come I can walk up in 26 seconds and see it and you can't? Because you're more worried about outward appearance. You're more worried about showing that, yes, I am a good pet mom. Man, you're a fucking idiot. Look, this raising kids is what makes a society, and people aren't raising them. You don't have to tell a kid to be straight or not straight. They'll figure that out on their own. But what you do is tell them how to treat each other, and you show them healthy relationships, and you hold them accountable for their actions. So when you do something stupid, you know it's stupid. You don't try to justify it, or you don't bring up in an argument. That's another thing. You know, something I learned from my mom is how to fight fair. And when I say that, many people, when you get in an argument with your significant other, y'all fight dirty as fuck. Y'all say anything to hurt the other person. Women know they can't physically hurt you, so they try to hurt you emotionally. I'm like, but what's going to happen if you got this man that's raised by a woman and he's emotional and you hurt that nigga's feelings? He's choking you. He's hitting you. And I think, here's something else I want to bring up. This whole thing about raising your kid online, fuck y'all stupid. You see dudes doing it, I'm like, man, that nigga's a bitch. You see bitches do it, that bitch is a bitch. So here's what I mean.
What are you talking about, raising your kid online?
So all these times, this woman, her daughter did something she didn't like, and she ended up cutting her hair and showing everybody online. And so this chick is commenting on, you're teaching your daughter about being toxic. I'm like, yeah, both are toxic. First things first. When you got discipline, that's a private matter. When your dad or mom set you straight, like I got a whipping in the store once because my mom wasn't having it. It wasn't about the violence. It's about the fact that you need to learn that when I tell you something, don't act out for these white folks. And what that means is you think that because you're in public that you can't get got, and your mom teaches you.
But check this out. So there's been times where I'll see a kid having a complete meltdown and giving the mother hell, and she's just exhausted. And I walk right up to the kid, I look at the mom, I wink at her, and I'm like, hey! And I throw that key bomb with my voice at this kid, and he's stunned. He's like, what was that? And I'm like, you stop. That's enough. And she has had no effect on this child. But I walk right up and I say, hey! And the child just freezes because the kid's system shuts down because they don't know what to do because they're not used to that. They're not used to a man saying to them, stop. Because the mother is just exhausted, probably from doing it by herself all the time. And wherever the dad is, wherever he is, I mean, it may not be his fault that the kid is he's not in the picture, but he's not there. So I walk right up and I just stop. I stop the whole thing from going down. And the kid, the mom smiles and laughs, and I just walk off.
Look, when these people are disciplining these children and people are filming it, sometimes I remember the one where the dad caught the 14-year-old having sex and he beat her with a belt and they were filming it. And he should go to jail. He should, you know what? That's private. Some things are not made for public consumption.
Right.
The whole idea where this woman was criticizing the other woman, that woman should not have put that on. When she was trying to keep her daughter off TikTok, which I completely agree. We all know TikTok is killing our kids. It's killing our society. China did that shit on purpose.
Yep.
So what you got to understand is this mom is saying, no, I don't want you on there. No, I don't want you on there. No, I don't want you on there. And so she said, well, look, if you do it, I'm going to cut your hair and let everybody see. Now, the other woman, you're being toxic. I said, well, you're being toxic too, because one, that lady should not have broadcast. That should have been private, and that kid would have learned her lesson. Instead, what you're looking for, people are high-fiving and co-signing. I don't need a co-signer. Whatever I do with my children is what I do with my children and how I discipline them. I remember I had a problem with my youngest daughter one time doing stuff at school. So the teacher would call me, and I used to be able to talk to her and set her straight. Well, this last time she wasn't having it. She was like, she knew I couldn't get off work. Well, the next morning I whooped her with a clothes hanger. I'm like, got her on the bus stop. I said, if I get a call, I'm coming with this clothes hanger, whipping your little ass. And
how old was she at the time?
She had to be 7.
Mm-hmm.
because her older sister was going to school too, and she was a different school, of course, but she's like, no, no, Dad, stop! They're gonna call the police on you. I'm like, I don't give a damn.
But
Because
check this out. See, whoopings only work up to a certain age, and beyond a certain age, then it's psychological warfare. And little girl
well,
or little
you got to
boy,
take
I'm
care
gonna
of them.
tell you
Get
like
them.
this:
Hmm.
you don't understand the depths that my psychological warfare goes to. So you will do as I say. Because if you don't, you will think you are in Abu Ghraib or you think you're in a Uyghur death camp and nobody is hurting you, but your mind is being terrorized. Don't you dare speak to me like I'm one of your friends.
I remember when my Dede, rest in peace, when he got into it with his oldest son. They was about to go at it. Of course, the mom stopped him, and I'm like, I don't know why you stopped
How
him.
old was the son?
Oh my God, you got to remember, 15.
Okay.
They
Okay.
I think he was
So
15.
yeah. So then, okay, let him go.
No, no, no,
Let the boy
no.
understand what's about to happen.
Hold it. I got to set a place for you. So he had his boys in martial arts. You know the wrestler Bobby Lashley. He's from Colorado, but that's where his martial arts school. So these guys have been training martial arts,
Hmm.
and that's what it is. He thinks he can whoop his dad, and I'm like, now Dayon was big, but I'm like, you don't even know. Your daddy he got
You
to
will
take
get
off.
thrashed, young man. You will get
Daddy,
fucking thrashed.
well, Daddy knows martial arts too, but you got to understand something. Daddy had a real hard first punch. He could floor somebody
Yeah,
real
he
easy.
got grown man strength.
Yeah, yeah. So of course the mom stopped it, but you got to understand that that's a lesson. you, it's hard for women to understand that that's a lesson. And so the reason you got to spank and dominate your children early on. Well, hold it. You got to discipline your children early on. Some kids can take a talking to. Some kids need a spanking. Some kids need to sit in the corner. It's whatever. But you should know your child's identity well enough to know what's necessary. And when you do it early on, then you ain't got to do it later on. They respect you. I told my homegirl, she was asking me what to do with her son. I said, you play football with him? She said, yeah, we was in the backyard playing football. I said, you let him win? She said, yeah. I said, why the fuck did you let him win? She's like, what do you mean? I said, because he's already a chauvinist at 8, 9 years old. He's already thinking, mom don't know this. Mom, I said, you should have dominated that little nigga. You should have tackled him like he, because in his, you don't want to fight him. But sometimes when your kids play sports with you and they see how strong you are, then they reevaluate their whole situation, because this physical activity gives me a chance to show you something that you don't normally see.
Hey,
I said,
how many times you date a woman that like to tussle?
oh man, I hate that shit.
You hate it?
Like,
I like it.
no,
Listen,
no, I like the tussling part, but they don't realize how much, like, you really don't think that I'm stronger than you.
nah, I just be laughing. I'm like, okay, you want some more? All right.
Yeah, I
And
got you.
I just like, baby, you don't understand. I know you know. I know you like to play, but I'm gonna pick you up and just slam you on this bed. Like you need to relax.
That's that reset you was talking about. Bow, reset.
Yep.
Like, look, like I said, when nobody wants to understand that masculinity is not toxic. Taking care of somebody you love is not toxic. Providing for somebody is not toxic. Making a decision is not toxic. Sometimes you got to make that decision in a split fucking second. And sometimes you get a long time to make a decision. But the fact of the matter is that the argument I had early on with my first daughter, and I didn't have to have it with my second daughter because my ex saw, was that, you love to dabble in this gray area. Everything is a fucking maybe. Kids need definites. Now, there's a time when, hey, Dad, is this going to happen? I said, maybe. But most of the time, it's a yes and a no. And I'm the one telling them no. I'm the one taking them shooting. I'm the one, I took my oldest daughter shooting. I'm taking all my kids shooting now, literally, except I took my son, I took everybody shooting. And they all was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, because I want you to learn from me. Y'all love this street shit, but that's not how this shit really works. I'd rather you do it with me so you can learn how this works. I had a talk, like I said, I had a talk with my daughter. I told you about this, where they had that shooting where they initially said 12 people got shot, but it was 7 people got shot, 1 died. And I called my daughter because I said, I don't want you to go to no after parties. I want you to go straight home. She's like, nah, Dad, don't worry. I'm at the Rod Wave concert in Lincoln. I'm not going to any. It don't affect me. Next day she goes to work. The girl that got killed worked with her, and then so I look at the news because I'm trying to find out about this shooting because I'm nosy. Who do you think's sitting there at the goddamn vigil? My fucking daughter. And I'm like, when she gets home, I go off on her. I said, don't you ever do that again. It's like, why not? I'm like, look, how you know that motherfucker wasn't done shooting? They might come back. You need to go to the church, but you don't have your ass in front of that house with no damn candles no more. You understand?
No, you get shot up like that.
Yeah, the motherfucker might come back. I don't know who the target was. So that's the shit you need to worry about. So, but that's a lesson.
All right. So check this out. So masculinity, there's layers to it, and there's different modes of it. But and there are men that will correct a dude who is being aggressively masculine or toxic in his masculinity, and that needs to be corrected by gentle men, by real men. But in this discussion, we outline the different levels to that. And so, in closing, I say to you out there, raise young boys to be men. Raise them to be the people that you want them to be. Raise young girls to be good mothers, good teachers, good lovers, good listeners, and independent thinkers. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.